Friends, family, and cohorts, welcome back to the Fight or Flight podcast, where we explore the moments of pressure, choice, and transformation. Today's guest is an athlete whose name carries weight on and off the mat, John Rallo. Most people take the path that's paved. John built his own with bare hands, black belts, and occasional broken bone. A true pioneer, John is the man behind the movement that brought mixed martial arts to Maryland. A fourth-degree black belt, a former undefeated professional fighter, and founder of Ground Control Academy, a training mecca known for developing world-class athletes in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, MMA, boxing, wrestling, and self-defense. But before that, he was just a bro, a guy I knew from high school. He transformed himself several years later into a BJJ maniac. He faced Ricks and Gracie and held out for a full 6 minutes. But that moment earned him not just respect, but the permission to fight. And that was a serious admission to a community and a club of great respect. And man, fight did he, across cages, mats, states, injuries, and opportunity. He built the amateur and professional MMA circuit from scratch here in Maryland. And when he saw athletes that he didn't have on stage, he built one called Shogun. This episode is about choosing to write your own story, even if it means willing to get hit to be heard. My brother John, welcome to the Fight or Flight podcast. It's so good to see you, man. Are you staying fit? You look amazing right now.
Yeah, I work out every day. I mean, it's part of the job description, so, I almost have to, but the life is set up conveniently. Like my friend has a gym called Exile, and right now it's one of the more well-known gyms on the East Coast. He'll get like 100 visitors a weekend from out of town, on a Saturday just to come and see the place, like 60,000 square feet. And it's amazing. I mean, it really is. So, and he's exactly next door. I mean, we planned it that way, but we're next door to each other in a building. I have about 15,000 square feet there for our gym. And, so I can go right next door, get my lifting in and, cardio, whatever you want to do. Then I can go next door, teach class, roll around a little bit. And, and then if I have time, I'll run it right up to the college and hit the track or whatever, get some sun. So, it's a nice little setup we have right now.
Oh, outstanding. So if we're going to dive right into it, John, 2 weeks into training and you're rolling with Rickson. Can you set the stage for us? How does a guy from Baltimore end up on that mat in Atlantic City? And what did those 6 minutes teach you, not only about yourself, but about your athletic abilities?
I'll be honest with you. It was a total accident, So I actually did a tournament before I really trained. I just kind of used my wrestling ability, and it was a gi tournament. I hadn't had a gi on before. So it was at Essex Community College. It was the first tournament they had in the state of Maryland. And I went up, and it was like 16 guys in my weight class. So it was a nice tournament. I had 4 guys I had to go through. Beat a guy from Mario Yamasaki's gym, which the Yamasakis are like UFC refs and all guys know them. Beat 2 guys from Lloyd Irvin's gym, and Lloyd's a big coach and a guy that gets a lot of people into the UFC. So it was pretty cool. I didn't submit anybody, but I didn't know any really. But I was able to take guys down and get power out of stuff and score points by attaining different positions. But the referee was a Hicks and Gracie rep. So after the tournament, he came to me and said, "Hey, where do you train?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't, And he's like, "Are you serious?" He goes, "Well, do you want to?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we've been looking, trying to find somebody legitimate." So he invited us to his school at a small little place. I went down there. His name was Mark Finley. 2 weeks into school with Mark, he came to me and asked if I was interested in fighting. And I said, yeah, that's why I got into this, because I think I would be all right at it. So he said, well, in order to represent Hickson, you need his permission. So he's coming to Atlantic City to do a seminar. You should come and, roll with him so that he can see what's going on. Like, this is a known thing. Any jiu-jitsu guys know. Hickson, at the end of a seminar, he could have a line of 50 people, and he'll just tap, one after another. You can go online and see it. And he just, in seconds, he was getting people. So my coach was like, look, don't be a sissy like the rest of these guys, pull guard or take him down. And I go, pull guard? Like, I don't even have a guard. I've been training for 2 damn weeks. So I got out there with Hickson, and like, he immediately swept me, which is like a reversal. So I took him down, and then he like swept me and got on top, and I just muscled my way back on top. He swept me like again, and I gorillaed my way back up. Wow. He swept me again, and I did it, and I got up again. Wow. So he was like, all right, this guy's not going to stay on bottom. So then, we just started rolling, and again, I really don't know much. So he tried to do like an arm lock, and I understood that, so I could defend that. And then he put me in like a triangle, which I defended, and then he slapped it on a second one like tighter, but I got out of it again.
How are you getting out of this? How are you getting
like just like muscling, my way out and things. And I knew enough about posture and stuff, like in the couple weeks I was with Mark. But we wrestled like all the way off the mats, and people are clapping because I'm actually getting out of things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I didn't have any positive moments in this. I was just defending the whole time, basically.
That's okay.
But I was able to survive. So, we keep going, and he, like, at one point, he, like, as I was trying to pass, and I didn't really know much about passing, he turned over and turtled, like almost like a referee's position in wrestling. And that's what I knew. So I'm in the referee's position, and he tried to like Peterson me, and I was hip to that from wrestling, and I countered it. And as soon as he knew I knew what was up, he rolled back to guard. And then he tried another submission I got out of. And, now we've been rolling for a little while, and I'm tired. I'm getting tired,
right.
And he sweeps me again, I get out. He sweeps me again, I get out. The third time he sweeps me, now I'm tired, and I'm like, all right, I'm down here. And anybody that knows Hickson, we used to call it the Hickson, but it's like a triple attack. He gets you in this gift wrap position where he's mounted, gets the arm, like kind of has your arm, and he's holding it around your neck, and his hand's through. So he has the option of a collar choke, an arm lock, or just a regular. So he'll go for one, and when you defend that, he just takes the other one, So when we got done, I tap, and the inevitable was coming. Did I have to? Maybe not. But, sooner or later I'm tapping because I just, he's amazing and I don't know what I'm doing. And so the next guy goes to wrestle with him, and Hickson says, nah, I'm done, So then he uses me as an example. And he was like, look, he goes, if my friend John sees me walking down the street and we have a problem and I don't know jiu-jitsu, he goes, he's going to pound me through the pavement. But because of my jiu-jitsu, he goes, I was able to weather the storm. And then eventually when he got tired, I was able to capitalize.
Interesting.
And then he said to me, he goes, John, he goes, look, God blessed you with your size and speed and strength. He goes, so when you go to jiu-jitsu practice, he says, you leave that at the door. He said, it's technique, technique, technique. He goes, if you do that, one day you might beat me. He goes, but at least I have the pleasure to say you're my student. So I'm 2 weeks into jiu-jitsu.
Wow.
I just rolled with maybe the greatest jiu-jitsu practitioner of all time. Like Renzo will tell you that he is. Many people will. So that like sold me. I got the best guy in the world telling me that I'm good and gave me his blessing to represent him. And like I told my dad, like this is back when Holyfield beat Buster Douglas for the belt.
Yeah.
And I go to my dad, I go, man, it's like going 6 rounds with Evander the first time I ever stepped in a boxing ring. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that really was it. I met Renzo soon thereafter, and I wound up switching because Hickson's association kind of was falling apart. And, and he gave us the blessing to get with Renzo because Renzo offered to train me. And Renzo's just such a good guy and like just this. I mean, he's got the biggest personality. Like when he walks into a room, the energy level just picks up a beat. Like he treats everyone like he's known them forever. And I mean, we're great friends, to this day. I mean, I've trained with many, many people with the last name Gracie because of my relationship with Renzo. But to be able to say you rolled with Hickson and Renzo is a pretty big deal in the jiu-jitsu world, and like something that I'm proud of. Is a pretty cool accomplishment.
Outstanding. Rolling it back just for a minute, technique versus muscle. Is that accurate? Is it
1,000%? I mean, that's what jiu-jitsu is really built upon. It is really one of, if not the only art where a little guy will beat a big guy if the big guy doesn't know what they know. It's so hard to explain until people really experience it, but it's almost like it's not fair. Like if you know jujitsu and the other guy doesn't, it is not fair. If you get into a grappling, exchange, it's going to be a problem for the guy that don't know. I mean, you can toy with people, and I mean, I think like a great expression of it was Hoist, in the
Yes.
UFC. And you look at a guy's 170 pounds soaking wet, doesn't have a muscle on his body, and he went out there and beat guys like Ken Shamrock and Dan Severn and Chemo and all the, obviously the competition level wasn't as high as it is now, but in true style versus style competition, this guy beat guys that outweighed him by 100 pounds, and it was through technique. It wasn't through any kind of brute force.
And is there a reason Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is not taught to collegiate wrestlers? Because it seems like the application would be direct.
Yeah, well, I mean, you figure, I think the biggest problem is wrestlers cannot go on their back, and jiu-jitsu is made,
Got it.
and I don't want to say it's like Henzo is a top player. I am a top player. I have a good guard, thankfully, because my coaches made me all the time get on your back, sweep or submit. If I got to my knees, they'd put me back on my back. And 100% like the technique is something you'd want to have. And also, I believe it sharpens the mind. And jujitsu is a very detail-oriented art, for the people. I always tell guys, like you hear Rogan, he calls calls jujitsu guys, like, what does he call them? Nerd assassins.
Yeah.
Because it's like smarter people gravitate to the sport because there are so many little details. And I'm not saying athletic ability can't carry you, but if two guys of equal athletic ability meet, the guy with the superior technique is going to win every time.
Every day. And how long does it take to become proficient for someone that's not been in the sport but is getting into it? And I know that the frequency of training and as such, but
yeah, that's probably the biggest factor. But it depends on what you want to define it as. Like if you want, I always think like police officers
right.
should at least be blue belts. If they could at least get to blue belt, they can at least positionally dominate somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. If you're going consistently, you might get it in a year, year and a half, 2 years. I think you should, you should be able to get your blue belt. So within a year or two of training, you could be proficient enough to defend yourself off your back. You're going to know basic submissions, the armbar, the triangle, kimura, like things that are very effective. And again, it teaches you like how to positionally dominate a person. And for like police officers, that's what they want. They want to be able to control a guy without having to pull a weapon. But I think jiu-jitsu is like, look, the armed forces and their combatives, they use jiu-jitsu. Couple good friends of mine who are operators, they have black belts on the bases so that the guys could go and get training in and stuff like that. So, they're not all out hand-to-hand fighting, but for their hand-to-hand combat, that's one of the main arts that they train.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you for that. John, meeting Renzo and joining his inner circle, that really changed everything for you, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, a lot, honestly. Like, I had the bug already.
Sure.
But he was so warm and accepting and accommodating. Like, all bullshit aside, my first, the first couple times I went up to Henzo's, it was to take, like, private lessons. And, when he asked me to formally come there and train with him, and like I told you, I was going there. I was driving to New York from Baltimore 3 days a week for 7 years. That's how long it took me to get my black belt. He never charged me a dime. You know what I mean? Never took a penny from me. When he figured out that how far I was going and that I'm spending a couple hundred a day just to come up there, and plus, like I told you, we got to be such good friends.
Right.
Never that's how he is, man. That guy just he didn't charge me. Kenzo's the best, man. I love that guy. And you got to figure too, he's such a like internationally loved personality and he was the first guy really to get into New York. So every fighter that came to New York, you're coming to Henzo's to train. So we got to roll with so many people. And then you just look at the Henzo lineage, like guys like Matt Serra, Ricardo Almeida, Hadra Gracie, who's like a 10, 12-time world jiu-jitsu champ. Like I was one of his main sparring partners for his first fight. That's actually when I got my black belt, was helping Hodger prepare for his first MMA fight. So, man, I've wrestled with like Daniel Gracie, Holes Gracie, Rodrigo Gracie, Gregor Gracie, Igor. There's so many of those guys. And like I said, then you have all the big fighters to come through, the international guys to come through, because Henzo's really popular in Japan and places like that. So very, very amazing experience, and also just the networking that happened, because from me being in since the late 90s, I really got to meet a lot of the pioneers of the sport. And it's been cool to either see or be part of a lot of this history, that really brought us to where we are now.
Absolutely. So, in addition to the networking and being part of the brotherhood, what did you learn not just about fighting, but about family and loyalty and the pressure that comes with training and competing?
Yeah, loyalty definitely is a big thing there. You've seen some guys would have falling outs in the gym and stuff. And yeah, Henzo's not down with any of that nonsense. Like, you're either with him or you're not. You know what I mean? The biggest takeaways, I mean, he always did, like, we would always talk business stuff. He would show me what was going on with his academy and all, and I would tell him what we were doing. But I think number one, like the way he just treated people, he was nice to everybody. And obviously, I think you get back what you give, So I really try to be, as accommodating as I can. Another big part of business, like he said, like, don't, like, if people want to quit, like, don't worry about them being in a contract or any of that kind of stuff. He's like, if they don't want to be there, just let them go, Say they want to leave and you're fighting with them about the contract. Now they're on the street downing you and saying these guys are jerks and this and that and everything else. Whereas if you just let them go, because you're losing them either way, now everything was cool. They're not out here bad mouthing. If they ever do decide to come back, they may come back and see you again. So little common sense stuff, you know what I mean? I think like that, obviously how he runs classes and, being able to learn from him. So obviously he's going to help your ability to teach. I just think you learn hard work. You also learn how to have a good time.
Right.
And he's, like I said, he's a very upbeat, like happy, gregarious type of guy. And I like seeing that too. When he's got his problems, he's never a guy that's moping about it. You just keep moving. That's always been one of my mottos. Like, don't dwell on things you can't control. You know what I mean? Just keep it moving and drive forward and handle it.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're learning not just the sport, but sort of a mantra for life as well, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of what do you want to say, like, similarities between sports and life. I mean, sports teach everyone a lot of life lessons. They teach you how to deal with adversity. They teach you how to work together with people. They teach you how to follow instructions. Teaches you about your ego. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I think there's a lot of crossover. And like I always point people, there was an old Forbes article that talked about how wrestlers made the best employees. And it went into talk about how, they're already conditioned for hard work, to deal with adversity, to push through barriers,
Nice.
to be mentally tough, to be competitive and want to do the best. And, again, talking about operators, they were asking, some of the questions was, what sports did you play? And wrestling is a big one, because, it shows that you're driven, but that you can also operate alone. You can be self-sufficient versus having to rely on everybody around you.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up, ego and the adversity that you had to go through, because it got me thinking about an experience that I read about related to you, which was the fight you were supposed to have with Fabiano. And
Fabiano Scherner, yep.
Yeah, wasn't that canceled because of your ACL tear?
Yeah, that wasn't for Fabiano Scherner. Fabiano Scherner, he had visa trouble and no-showed me. Really, that's what happened. I was in Atlantic City, weighed in, and he wasn't there. And Laborio, who was the top team coach at the time, said he had visa issues, and that's why he wasn't there. I tore my knee. I was fighting a wrestler. I think Glenn Sandel was his name, if I'm not mistaken. It might have even been for like the reality fighting belt. But, a month out, I tore my ACL. And, so I wasn't able to do the fight. And on top of that, what you had to wait a while, when you first tear the ACL, they have to let swelling go down. They want you to strengthen your leg up and stuff. So I had the surgery, and I remember it was in the month of April, and Sarah calls me, and he's like, hey, the UFC reached out to me, said they were asking questions about you. He goes, I don't know if they want to use you for a fight or for some show that they're creating. He goes, but somebody's going to call. So I get a call from a gentleman at the time. His name was Wayne Sampson. And, he's asking me all my, height, weight, that kind of stuff. We want you on the show. It was for the Ultimate Fighter. And then he goes, can you be here in June? And I'm like, man, that's going to be impossible. And he was like, what do you mean it's going to be impossible? And I go, I literally just had ACL surgery, and it's April. So no way in 2 months I'm going to be there ready to go. And I was like, August, September, like give me a chance, you know what I mean? And he goes, do it in June. He goes, we film, I want to say it was, I don't know, 7 weeks maybe, he told me. And then it would air in August. He goes, so, man, we're going to have to call you on the next show. I'm like, I really think I could have did well. Who knows, but on the flip side, again, like I always say, things happen for a reason. And when I was out with the ACL injury, the school, we had about, 40 or 50 students. Once I was there more consistently, even though I'm gimped around with my knee, and it just doubled in size. I got 100 students already. So I started jiu-jitsu when I was 29. So at this point, I'm already 34, 35 years old. The UFC at that time is paying like $2,500 to show and $2,500 to win is your first, you first get in.
Yeah.
Pay. And over here now, I'm making, 10 or 12 grand a month. I'm billing for what? Just being here and teaching these classes. MMA was not legalized in Maryland, and I wanted to get it legalized. So I made a conscious decision. Either do I chase my ego and go fight the UFC thing, or do I possibly set myself up as the guy in this area? And I chose the latter, so,
Sweet.
Now we have 5 gyms getting ready, hopefully to do a 6th. And I have a show called Shogun Fights after I got mixed martial arts legalized here. Like I was invited to the bill signing by the governor, when we got it done and all that stuff. Yeah. So, that's another time where you had to look, do you go for the glory and go fight? And like I said, I think I would, I think I would have won more than I would have lost. You know what I mean?
I think you would have as well.
But, again, I made a conscious decision and I really have no regrets. Like I'm happy with what I did.
John, when you were working to legalize MMA in Maryland, were there a lot of obstacles and early rejections, safety concerns, things that really impeded that?
What I did was I went to the athletic commission and I said, what do you need from me to make you comfortable to legalize this? They told me, what some of their concerns were. Now, my uncle at the time, Ron DeJulius, he was like the commissioner of labor and industry here. So I asked him, what do you think the chances are of getting something like this passed? So he went, talked to some people, and he came back and he goes, man, John, I'm not getting the pushback that I thought I would. He goes, I think you have a good shot. He says, but you're going to need lobbyists, to talk, to get down here and talk to these people. Went from there, we wound up going and putting it through. So another big player for me was a gentleman named Nick Lembo. He's the attorney for the Athletic Commission in New Jersey. Nick had a lot of material as far as safety things. He had a study that Johns Hopkins had done on comparing like mixed martial arts injuries to football and cheerleading and soccer. Believe me, it was lower than almost all of them. You know what I mean?
Come on.
Yeah, really? It was pretty crazy.
That's
like
funny.
Especially like boxing. Like people always say, oh, it's so much more violent. You guys punch guys when they're on the ground. People don't wear boxing gloves to protect their opponent. It's to protect your hands so you can punch that guy in the face more often. Right. Standing 8 count is ridiculous in its own mind because here I've now cracked you, dropped you, you had to get up, you're shaking the cobwebs out. So now I'm going to count to 8 and let you get banged and you're already concussed head some more. In
Yeah.
MMA, there's 1,000 ways to win. You may never get hit. Guy may take you down and submit you down there. And that's why you have the amount of deaths in boxing that you have in comparison to MMA, where there's basically, I mean, slim to none, especially in sanctioned events. You know, these guys are getting pre-fight physicals. They're doing blood work. They're getting neurological testing done. If guys are older, they may have to get a brain MRI and a stress test. So the states really, their part is for fighter safety and to make sure everybody, you know, gets paid, you know, that you don't have a crooked promoter stiffing people and stealing ticket money.
Yeah, no, I can appreciate that. Thank you. Let's take a pivot for a quick second because you lived a second life. I want to hear about touring with Motley Crue and providing protection for people like Tommy Lee
Right.
and Johnny Colt. I mean, what was that like living the celebrity lifestyle, man?
I mean, yeah, you got to party like a rock star. I mean, I really didn't party too much because if you're working, you know, I don't
Sure.
want to, you know, I need to be of clear mind, you know, when you're doing that. What I can say about Tommy is this: nicest guy you'll ever meet, super friendly, acts like a big kid. You know what I mean? Like he really is very upbeat, very generous. Like I don't have a bad thing to say about Tommy. I might have seen him angry one time, you know, in the couple years that I was with him. I mean, we still text and talk to this day. You know, like he's, you know, if he comes to town, I'll pop in and see him and stuff. But what an amazing experience! I mean, you know, we're of the same age, so you know, we grew up listening to Motley Crue, so it was pretty surreal to be able to be on tour with those guys. Mix of character, very, very nice guy too. Vince, I worked with Vince when he was drinking, and I worked with Vince when he was sober. And I can tell you, it's like Sybil, you know, like
Oh, wow.
you know, the alcohol doesn't deal with him well. But when he was sober, nicest guy on the planet. I mean, he took me and his bodyguard at the time, Ray Ray. We went out and we were in London together. And Vince is giving us the tour of Trafalgar Square and Buckingham Palace and telling you all the history about it and all this shit. You know, it was
cool.
It was wild. Yeah, I mean, just had a blast. You know, and really really cool to be able to see the world on their dime and on their level. You know what I mean? Like, you know, being able to, you know, you're getting all the red carpet treatment pretty much everywhere you go. And guys like that, they're just connected all over the planet. There's people waiting in those towns for him to come to their restaurant, you know, or whatever else. And they're taking care of the bill because, you know, Tommy's in. So, you know, pretty wild. And another, like I told, with networking and MMA, that's another, you know, section where, you know, just tons of networking. A lot of my friends still working in the business and stuff. So, you know, if I want to go see a show or something's going on, like it's pretty easy to, hey, man, you know anybody over here? And you make a call and get in there. But, yeah, man, it was a great experience. A buddy of mine is the one that kind of arranged it. He had a security company. Yeah, he got me in to do this. And fortunately, when we worked this like, it was like a 1 week kind of thing for New Year's with them. And they wound up liking us. So we got a tour. And then from there, it just went on. And with Tommy and them, I did like a Rockstar Supernova, which was like a TV show. And the contest was the singer, whoever won the singing contest would front the band and tour. And it was like a Navarro creation. He had a band that was on tour. It was called Panic Channel. So I've worked with Dave before too. He's another nice guy. But yeah, it was pretty crazy. And like first they had me with Gilby and Johnny, and they liked me like immediately. They were like, yeah, we want this guy on tour. And Johnny came to me and said, look, Tommy's the basically the shot caller. So make sure you get with him. So if he likes you, you guys are on tour. So Rich like put me with Tommy and the rest is history, you know. And then Tommy actually wound up asking me, like I started doing personal stuff and you know, and everything with him. And then, you know, in the Motley and, you know, got to work with Pam and the kids, you know, a couple times and stuff. So pretty cool stuff. And again, like just, you know, I've been blessed, you know, with, you know, a lot of the things I've been able to do. So again, I'm very fortunate.
Amazing. John, how do those worlds compare, the fight world and the celebrity security? Is there carryover, or is one more intense than the other? Or are they remarkably different?
They're definitely not remarkably different because you're traveling, you know what I mean? And for me, with Tommy and all, I was very tight with a couple of the other guys. So if you're on tour with guys that are friends of yours, like it's amazing, you know what I mean? Because you're all hanging out, you're seeing the world together. The difference is, when we're fighting and everything else, they're kind of similar, other than the fact that they're paying for everything. And when I'm doing the fight game, we might be paying for everything. Just depends
Right.
on the situation. But if I'm the coach or whatever, we might be taking care of our fighters. But I think they are kind of similar, just because you're with a team almost. You guys are all out doing your thing. You're experiencing the world. Like I've been to Russia and things for the fight game too, and I think they are kind of similar, other than the fact that you are doing everything on rock star level when you're on tour, because you're basically rolling around with those guys. Both worlds are fun. Both worlds require a lot of traveling. You meet some celebrity. You meet a lot of celebrities in each of those worlds. In the jiu-jitsu world, there might be a little more of camaraderie or respect, just because you all understand the suffering of training and things like that, the sacrifices that are made.
Hmm.
But on tour, it's kind of similar. Like when you work for these guys,
Yeah.
and you work 24 hours a day. Like, and if he's in his room, that's when you're not working. But you got to be ready when he picks the phone up and says, "Hey, can I go eat?" And Tommy never was "Hey, let's get over here." And I'm "Hey, dude, I was maybe going to go shopping. Is that cool? Are you busy? You know what I mean?" He's
Right.
like that kind of guy. So that could be the one difference, I think. On tour, I'm almost a follower. You're like almost the shadow. Unless I don't want him doing something, then I would step in and say so. Where in the fight game, whether I'm coaching or whether you're fighting, you're kind of the guy in charge. And one, you're kind of the you're the employee, or you're the second. And in the fight world, you're usually the number one.
Yeah. So let's look at being number one. And number one in your world is ground control. And that's not just a gym, it's a community that you're building. What
Yeah,
type of
definitely.
fighters are you building there? And what values are you driving through the school to the communities that matter most to you after all these years?
Yep. We have 5 locations now. So 4 of them are here in Maryland. We have one in Rosedale or Baltimore County. We have one in Columbia. We have one in Hunt Valley. We have one in Owings Mills. We have one in West Palm Beach, Florida, right now too.
Oh,
My
nice.
partner from Columbia moved down there and opened one, and it's been open for like 3 or 4 years now, so it's doing pretty good. It's definitely a community. And I think for guys like yourselves that played a team sport, like when you get out of team sports, of course you miss the competition and things, but I think what most people miss the most is the camaraderie.
Yeah,
Like the
100%.
locker room, you're pissing on your friends and making fun of each other, busting balls. Like that's what guys do. So in the school, it's that atmosphere. At least that's how Henzo had his atmosphere. So it's kind of how I have my atmosphere, because I like it that way. And so it's I feel it's like that kind of team environment. But also, now obviously I'm the figurehead of the schools too. So in the schools, Miles, we start at 4. 4 years old. We have kids now. We have teen classes. We have women, and we
Wow.
have fighters. So I always tell people, whatever your goals are, we can help you attain them. If you're just trying to come in and learn some self-defense and lose some weight, we can help with that. If you're trying to be a professional fighter, we can help with that.
Hmm.
We've gotten several guys into the UFC. Through my promotion Shogun, I don't know, I might have put 30 people, and at least I'd have to go back and count, into the UFC over the years. But I feel the school itself, and even like the fact that I stayed in Rosedale, which honestly is the most industrial area of all the gyms. The other gyms are in more affluent areas. I grew up around here. I chose to stay here, and because I wanted to give back to the community. So I do a lot of charity work, with animals and stuff. Everybody knows I'm a big animal guy. And with the schools, we want to teach the kids, number one, to be student athletes. They're not just, coming here. If their grades are bad, they can't train. You know what I mean? So, you're looking to create some self-confidence. You're looking to teach them some discipline. You're trying to get them physically fit, and you want to teach them how to defend themselves. So, for us, we want them to be part of the team, make new friends at the gym. And that's what we always say, like when the little ones come in, in the first couple weeks, they might be crying their way on the mat. 6 months later, they're competing in a grappling tournament or something, so it's pretty cool. I mean, I enjoy it. I still do enjoy teaching. I really enjoy teaching more fundamental stuff than like a lot of the new jiu-jitsu so flashy and fancy. I kind of enjoy teaching more of the fundamentals. So hopefully, they have a solid foundation, and then they can get as fancy as they want off of that, And look, as they get more experience, you show them more fancy stuff. But I really enjoy trying to make sure these guys have a real solid foundation. If you want to build a building, if you want to really grow your skill set, you have to have a solid base and fundamentals to do that,
Yeah, John, someone that's listening to this that wants to try a class or learn more about it, do they just show up? Do they go online? What is the best way for a newbie to come to the studio?
Yeah, I think most new people, find it. I mean, nowadays everybody finds everything through the internet. I always tell people, like, rarely does anybody driving down the street and go, "Oh, a jiu-jitsu school, I'm going to go in there." So usually you have the desire to want to defend yourself or get in shape, or maybe you watch some fights and you say, I want to learn how to do that. I think the best thing for new people to do is a lot of research, and research the main guy, like the head instructor, the instructors. A lot of schools can look nice. A lot of guys can have some BS up they put in their resumes, but it's really important to have a solid, somebody with some. I don't even want to have to, they don't need to be a world champ, but who did they get their black belt from? That's a big one.
Sure.
There's a lot of people. I'm a jiu-jitsu black belt. Well, who'd you get it from? I don't know, Tim Smith. You know what I'm saying?
Billy Bob.
Where did he get his? So the lineage of the instructor matters. What experience have they had? How did their students do in the tournaments? If you were coming to like a regional event like Shogun, how are the guys doing when they compete? That's how we get like a lot of kid members too. Like our kids go and they're all wearing the same stuff, and they go and they do well. And parents come up to them because they like seeing how everybody's wearing the same gear, and they all warm up together, and they're all supporting each other. So that kind of stuff, if you're in a gym that doesn't do that, parents take notice. As an adult, similarly, I think do your research. It's the most important thing. Our gyms, we give a free week. I want people to come in, take as many classes as they can, because I want them to make sure, number one, that they like, the training and they like the facility and that they want to be there, So, I don't see any sense to high pressure sale people. There's a lot of gyms that do that. I don't believe in that nonsense. I buck all sales trends. I believe that we have a good facility. We have great instructors. And if you don't want to be here, that's your loss, is kind of the way I look at it. And if I have a cancer in there, I'm not afraid to cut it out either. I don't, we have had some where I've had a clown, go around here, like back in the day when the Bay Cafe was popping. This guy's showing up in tank tops, and you're not allowed to wear a tank top. And then he'll tell the doorman, "Oh, well, I'm John Rallo's friend." You know what I mean? I train at ground control. Yeah, what's that mean? That's going to get my foot up their ass. You know what I mean? It's not going to get you in the club. These guys are calling me up, telling me, some jerk off, came down here. So we had a guy who was doing, trying that kind of crap. And then he was telling people that he signed a contract with the Gracies. Yeah, you signed a contract with me, to join my school. Henzo didn't come down here and sign you to be some kind of fighter. So that guy told him, I was like, dude, you got an attitude problem. and you obviously have an ego problem, and I don't have no room for you in here, so go find someplace else. I don't like liars in my gym.
No, I appreciate that. John, I want to do a quick fire round with you. I want to ask you a couple questions, and I want you to hit me with the first thing that comes.
All right.
Rickson or Renzo in a street fight?
If you wanted to ask me right at this moment, I would say Enzo. But if it was over, if it was, in their prime, everybody knows Hickson would win that one.
Okay. Striking or grappling?
Grappling for me. And I think Hoist proved style versus style.
Yeah. Best pizza in Baltimore?
I think my man at Valentino's has a real good pizza. I like his. Pizza John's is a good one people like, Frank's. Matthews if you're in Hollandtown.
Yeah, I hit Frank's a lot. I love that place. Yeah. That honey boo pizza, man. Oh, I could throw a couple of those pies down.
Look, and Portnoy, they were already blown up, but Portnoy really blew them up.
Yes, no doubt. MMA or jiu-jitsu for longevity?
For longevity, jiu-jitsu, obviously, because no headshots and things like that. For a fighting style, MMA is more complete, so you would go with the MMA guys. But if you're an older guy, I would say gi jiu-jitsu. I always tell people, look, in the gi, it's much fast, it's slower paced, grips. It's kind of a little more technical. And no gi, there's a lot of sweat and athletic ability involved. The knucklehead wrestlers all like to jump in there. So, I think the gi probably if you want longevity.
Good to hear. I'm going to keep that in mind because I'm one of the older guys. One fighter who never reached his athletic potential.
Man, that's a tough one because most of these guys, they get there and then they flame out. Maybe Rumble. I don't know. Maybe Anthony Johnson. He died young. He was a phenomenal fighter, almost won the belt, and things. I think if he stuck around, maybe he would have eventually become a champ. He might not be the best example because he was pretty good, but, his flame went out early, and, prayers, to him.
All around to the family as well. John, what's the most misunderstood part of being a coach?
Well, we don't have all the answers. That's a fact,
That's a good answer.
I mean, maybe the hardest part is what I was saying to you earlier. Like, in order to be a good coach, you have to be able to deal with a myriad of personalities, and one fighter can be totally different from another. Some guys need a foot in the ass. Some guys need a hug. You know what I mean? And you have to figure out how do they respond the best? What do these guys respond the best to? I believe that does take some talent, to be able to read a personality and understand what motivates that person.
Yeah, I'd add to that, John. I'd suggest you're a great coach because you're an amazing student. And I think those that have not been a student haven't learned from those that came before. And so I appreciate the way you're acknowledging them and then giving back. And that's why I think you're a great coach.
Yeah, thank you.
Which gets me to my last question. A harder opponent, ACL rehab or building Shogun?
You might think it's funny, but maybe the ACL rehab. And look, I bounced back from my ACL fairly quickly, but Shogun, once I got the momentum moving forward and I was able to call upon like my network of friends, we got the law passed in one session, which is unheard of.
Amazing.
So, and we got to pass through both the House of Delegates and the Senate. So, maybe we'll do it another time. I got some funny stories about getting it legalized and stuff. But
we have to do another.
Yeah, I would say, maybe the ACL because I lost some opportunities because of that. You know what I mean? And
sure.
But yeah, I mean the Shogun thing was obviously took years to get done, but it was a process, and really I really can't say that I had a lot of setbacks. It really, things went well. As long as I just followed the steps and like I said, asked them, what do you want from me, and gave them what they asked for.
Awesome. John, thank you. You made Baltimore believe. You brought fight home. You stayed in Rosedale, and in doing so, you gave people purpose, protection, and a path for those that welcomed it. Thank you for showing us what it looks like to fight for more than just a title. And I appreciate your time and look forward to having you back on another pod.
Yeah, brother. It was a cool experience. It's good to see you again. And
back at you, my friend.
Tell your sisters I said hello.
I appreciate that. I'm Miles Levin. This is Fight or Flight. Thank you for joining us.